If 2021 was the year that movies came back, 2022 was the year movies reigned. This is the first year since COVID when I felt legitimately excited to be into film. When I look back at any given year of film, I judge it less by the bad movies or by the overall bell curve. I'm more interested in the sheer quality and quantity of its best. And though 2022 might not be quite at the same level as 2019 in that respect, well, if it isn't better than everything in between. And to think there are still a bunch of movies I still need to see, particularly in the international and documentary scene, and women talking if it'll finally show in my area. Number 10. Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. Marcel the Shell is one of the most original movies I have ever seen. It is the freshest contribution to the animation medium since Spider-Verse. Voiced by Jenny Slate, Marcel the Shell is a shell with shoes on, named Marcel, who, with the help of an aspiring documentarian and actual director of the movie, Dean, attempts to search for his missing community while struggling to hold on to the community he has left with his grandma Connie. On its surface, the movie might not look like much, but I would argue that is sort of the point, and in its quieter and calmer chamomile tea vibe, there is immense emotional significance, so long as you take the time to stop and listen. Animation is typically at its best when it transports us into new worlds, but that is not the only thing animation can be used for. Marcel zooms in on familiar sights, transforming the mundane into something new and magical. Marcel himself does something similar to the bare-knuckle pieces of mundane life, as he performs for the camera and shares his unique way of seeing things, renewing us with a new appreciation of the world around us. By the time the movie ends, I felt like I got to personally know the shell, shoes and all, and I was sad to remember I do not have a tiny shell friend. With shoes on.
What are you trying to do with all this?
I'm making like a little documentary that I might put online.
Online?
Yeah.
It lost me.
Number 9. AFTERSUN. AFTERSUN feels like the sort of artsier, to an extent plotless, indie movies that don't always work for me, but AFTERSUN prevailed despite my duller, popcorn-munching tendencies, and truly resonated with me. Charlotte Wells' stunning directorial debut tells the semi-autobiographical story of an 11-year-old girl on vacation with her elusive father. The audience, like Wells herself, peers into a string of little mundane moments between father and daughter, through the lens of hindsight. These moments are a little boring, sure. If you suck like me, this movie kind of made me think vacations were a mistake, but in a way, that puts me into the perspective of the girl. From a young age, these same moments are so easy to take for granted, but they become ever so important and much more complicated as an adult. That latter perspective gradually spills into the film as it goes on. AFTERSUN is clearly the sort of movie that will resonate more with me as I get older, when I've lived more life and experienced more loss. But even in this mundane and insignificant little moment, I recognize the deft hand and feral passion put into the movie, and it managed to convey a special sort of grief only wisdom could provide. Number 8. Nope. I am not alone in saying that Jordan Peele is one of the most exciting creatives working today, and his latest film fully lives up to his stellar resume. Nope follows a pair of siblings, played by the always amazing Daniel Kaluuya and Keke Palmer, who are descendants of the unnamed and ultimately forgotten black jockey captured in one of the world's first ever films. Having been relegated today to underappreciated behind-the-scenes work, they see an opportunity to claim the limelight that has eluded them when they discover a UFO above their home and dedicate themselves to getting footage of the thing. Nope is a nostalgic tribute to Spielberg-esque action blockbusters. But it is also completely original, not only deconstructing a lot of those original tropes, but offering a new take on these tried-and-true concepts, often with Peele's trademark horror twists. There's no way in hell I'm spoiling what this movie has in store for you, But you should know that there is a killer chimpanzee in this movie, and it is more or less a footnote in the bigger picture. Did anyone else expect a twist where the chimpanzee would have been revealed to be an alien at the end? No? Just me? Alright. Number 7, Babylon. Babylon is quite possibly the most divisive inclusion on my list, and it is the only movie in my list that is considered rotten, but I legitimately feel I must have seen a different movie than most other people because Damien Chazelle's latest movie is nothing short than stellar in my eyes. I will admit, Babylon had me rather concerned in its first 5 minutes. The movie does not make the best first impression, but it picks up considerably once Margot Robbie enters the picture. Babylon might be the best directed movie of the year, and Chazelle somehow finds a way to elevate his craft even further from the already star-ward La La Land. Unless my Oscars predictions end up being wrong, I will probably talk about Babylon in some other video, but I urge you to see this movie, in theaters if you can. When it comes to the box office, Babylon is currently sinking more money than an imploding star, but you will want to see these extravagant set pieces, larger-than-life performances, and insane long take sequences on the big screen. I am very confident that in 5, maybe 10 years' time, Babylon will be looked at as an underappreciated classic, and all of you square prunes will be pretending you were on board from the start. Number 6, The Batman. The Batman was almost one of those stellar movies that faded away in my consciousness as the year went on, but having watched this movie again, I can confirm that it is easily the best superhero film since Spider-Verse and probably my favorite Batman movie of all time. The Batman makes you truly feel as though you're in Gotham with incredible set pieces and ingenious artificial lighting effects. The screen is cast in a sort of Halloween-y neon blur. Matt Reeves manages to make his take on the world just as immersive and expressive as the hand-painted Batman animated series, which I didn't think was even possible, while taking the story in more mature and contemplative directions than any of its predecessors. That is a killer combination. And speaking of killer, Paul Dano's Riddler manages to be absolutely horrifying and a complete dweeb at the same time.
Hey, my little pog champs.
And though he is a touch muted, intentionally so, Robert Pattinson's Batman is more clearly characterized than perhaps any other iteration of the character. He's still kind of young and figuring things out. He's also kind of socially awkward, giving me some Cloud Strife energy. But there is a crucial earnestness in what he is trying to do. He is just too angry and too immature to realize the effect he is having on the world around him. Bruce Wayne might already be Batman, but it takes the events of this movie for him to become a hero, and we get to see that learning process.
All everyone wants to do is unmask you, but they're missing the point. You and I both know. I'm looking at the real you right now.
Number 5, Decision to Leave. I believe it is saying quite a lot that Park Chan-wook's latest romance noir film, Decision to Leave, is easily the tamest of all his movies that I have seen, because this movie is far from conventional. But by God, is it the perfect amount of entertaining. There are so many layers to explore in this darkly twisted relationship that develops between a detective and a murder suspect, a cacophonous chain of perfect, toxic disasters that leads to what is easily my favorite ending to any movie this year. I said in my original review that the style was a little too excessive for me at points. I was wrong. This is the perfect amount of style, especially when you consider the ridiculous amount of craft and precision that had to come into most of these insane transitions. Jesus, I wanted less of that? Detective, can you solve the case of who murdered my good taste? The movie excels in its subtler craft too. All you need to do is look at this impossible shot in the first interrogation. Whenever one is in focus, their reflection is blurred, while the reflection of the other person is in focus. Does that not convey everything you need to know about this movie and their relationship in a singular shot? It doesn't actually, so you should see this movie. On Mubi. I'm not sponsored, I'm just a fan.
이러려고 이포에 왔어요? 내가 그렇게 만만합니까?
내가 그렇게 나쁩니까?
Number 4, Top Gun Maverick. One of the reasons I really like making this video every year is because I want to give attention to amazing movies that might otherwise go under the radar. Maybe I can be the one to introduce you to one of your new favorite films. And then you will owe me, per the stipulations of our contract. Top Gun Maverick, however, does not need my help, but if for whatever reason you are yet to see this movie, I would urge you to give it a shot. To an extent, I struggle to adequately analyze this movie other than claiming for the billionth time that it looks really good and that the dogfighting scenes are hype and Tom Cruise could push me out of a plane and I wouldn't even be mad. One might argue that Top Gun Maverick does not offer anything all that new to the action blockbuster, other than some highly impressive and largely natural aerial shots, which honestly might be enough, but the movie absolutely masters its familiar craft, standing well and above all of its contemporaries as the new crowning achievement for what an action blockbuster could and should be able to do. So yeah, I liked it. Number 3, The Banshees of INISHERIN. I now and officially forgive Martin McDonagh for making 3 billboards because Banshees is the first 10 out of 10 on this list, and a 10 out of 10 means I think it is one of the best made movies of all time, so it's a big deal coming from me. The Banshees of INISHERIN lingered with me perhaps longer than any other movie on this list, and there is so much I want to say about this movie, but there's no time, and I would have to spoil stuff, and that would defeat the purpose of this video. At its core, Banshees is shockingly simple, but from simplicity, the movie brews complexity. It is a story about 2 best friends in an isolated community, when one suddenly decides to stop being friends with the other. McDonagh does everything one can possibly do with this premise, squeezing every ounce of comedy, drama, and legitimate tension there is, and by the end, we see our familiar characters transformed into something completely unrecognizable. But the journey itself felt so inevitable in hindsight. Its story is brilliant, and the way it manages to tell its story visually is arguably more so. And we have the best performances of the year, delivering the best English dialogue of the year.
You do like me.
I don't.
You liked me yesterday.
Oh, did I? Yeah.
I thought you did.
Oh homie, you know number 2 is RRR, and it's going this high up the list. Has RRR changed my life? That implies RRR is not currently changing my life as we speak. And that does not even include the overwhelming amount of support given to my review of the movie. Thank you so much, by the way. RRR is a 3-hour-long movie, but it is one of the easiest 3 hours one could ever spend. By this point, I've seen this movie about 4 times, and honestly, it only gets better. There is a stupid amount of substance and significance loaded in this film from a cultural, religious, and historical point of view, but you don't have to get all of that in order to enjoy this movie, because all of that extra sauce stands on the shoulders of some of cinema's most impressive spectacle, and one of the film world's most engaging dynamic duos to have ever been depicted on screen. Go into this movie as blind as possible, and I am going to just jump into my honorable mentions now. Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. It's not nearly as good as the first. The sequel struggles from some pacing issues that makes it rather cumbersome to rewatch, but this is still bound to be an exhilarating and, more importantly, new movie franchise, and it deserves the hype just for that. Avatar, The Way of Water. I don't really have all that much more to add to this movie. What you see is what you get. It is spectacle blockbusters and immersive world building at its best. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. It looks as though this sort of animation style is here to stay, and I am here for it. Don't associate this movie with its mediocre predecessor. Last Wish is up there in quality with the very best of Shrek. Cha-Cha, Real Smooth. Cha-Cha follows a 22-year-old college graduate who is unemployed and devoid of purpose, as I was a 23-year-old college graduate, unemployed, devoid of purpose. I don't really want to get back into that mindset, hence why it's not on the list proper, as sadly there's a little selfishness in Betterment. The menu. This is the last and most painful cut on my list. When I first saw this Ratatouille meets Saw freak show, I was certain it was going to be in my top 5. My opinions have not dwindled. The competition was just so thick. Ralph Fiennes plays one of this year's most entertaining characters, and this is the kind of movie Adam McKay clearly wants to make, but I can assure you, don't worry dear viewer, the menu is far more competent. My number 1, Everything Everywhere All at Once, or EOW as I affectionately call it, follows a woman named Evelyn. Otherwise unaccomplished and stagnant in her life, she is suddenly tasked with saving the multiverse from a formidable and personal threat. I don't know what I can say here that I haven't already talked about in some other video, or what I will inevitably talk about in my Best Picture nominee ranking that I will do with Nitish Plug, but this is kind of the Zoomer movie, isn't it? Sure, you can kind of see that in the humor, which in its insanity and raunch might seem almost unintelligible to anyone else, but you can also see it clearly in its themes. EOW explores with surprising complexity what it is like to feel insignificant, a feeling uniquely common within a generation exposed to everything from a young age.
Mommy let you use her iPad. You were barely 2.
Just listen to Bo Burnham's Welcome to the Internet, it's some set up better than I can. Perhaps most crucially, EOW offers some legitimate hope and ways to cope, in spite of these existential thoughts and overwhelming pressures. Stylistically, EOW is also very Zoomer. It resembles the sort of shoestring, scrappy, low-budget filmmaking that feels almost more at home on YouTube than the cinema screen. But EOW is not just YouTube either. It seamlessly adapts this new style into a cinematically grand and technologically excellent film. EOW represents an evolution in movies, and a brand new generation, with their own stylistic preferences and perspectives and anxieties, is starting to take over. I think that is very exciting. I know the Daniels are millennials, don't ruin the moment, but Shoyo is amazing. I'm tired, I'm going to be a rock now.